Would you like to be somebody who knows a different way to building a sense of self-worth? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how you need to fundamentally give yourself a sense of inherent value, which is actually a spiritual process and does not really have to do anything with your material possessions or even your performance in life. It has to do with a deep understanding of your potential and why that is so valuable, and therefore you deserve self-value. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. So I've been dwelling on why people lack a deep sense of self-worth. And I think it's because people suffer from an unconscious existential angst. It's not an obvious thing. Like, people might logically assume that you build confidence and a feeling of self-worth by finding evidence of your abilities. So you say, okay, well, I can do this, this, and this really well, therefore I must be valuable. But that's not really like an effective way, and I'll tell you in a second. Like, people say, yeah, you should look at your track record. That's not going to cut it. That won't give humans a long-term sense of self-worth that they yearn for. Thus, the problem of a missing self-worth is actually rooted in something far deeper. But before we continue, let's quickly define what self-worth is so we're on the same level. I would say self-worth is an internal feeling of being good enough in life, in general. That might be a bit abstract, but what it means is that if you have a sense of self-worth, then you are not anxious of being not good enough. If someone is permanently anxious that they're not worthy of other people's attention and love, then they probably don't have a sense of self-worth. So if you get rid of that anxiousness and fear and discomfort of feeling like you're not good enough, then you'll probably have self-worth. Okay, so I think the way to build self-worth is not by performing successfully in life necessarily and then internalizing your success, but by developing the spiritual, non-physical side of your being. Self-worth is a consequence of existential equanimity, calmness, which lies at the foundation of your being. Just performing successfully in life won't bring you a sense of self-worth that remains in the long term and which satisfies your existential angst, because the reason you feel like a low level of self-worth is because you feel like you're not good enough. But that's not on a superficial level. That's like at a deep level. So just showing yourself that you're good at this and this and this won't cut it. Like, maybe you've had it in the past. I mean, I've done a lot of, I think, successful things in my life, but I still feel like I don't have like a self-worth, or I'm not good enough sometimes. And other people have done, like, have succeeded in amazing domains and have these excellent achievements, but they still feel worthless somehow. So that's not going to cut it. Okay, so let's get into what I mean by developing the spiritual side of your being. The key reason why developing your spiritual awareness, which I would call is the degree to which you think and sense that there is more in life than just what meets the eye and what you can feel. So the key reason why developing that spiritual awareness is maybe the foundation. Wait, I need to quickly check my notes. So that might be, developing your spiritual awareness is probably the foundation of self-worth, because it makes you deeply grasp that you are inherently valuable as a human. And it also does a lot of other things that can lead to a feeling of value as a person, but that would take hours to get into, and I'm not going to do that now. So let me explain first why you are inherently valuable. There is something very valuable that can be achieved in life. Maybe it is meaning, fulfillment, enlightenment. That thing can be achieved or found by humans. It can be found by humans because these aims have been conceptualized by humans. They're like human constructs, and therefore they must sort of reflect something about what humans have sort of mapped out in the past. They've experienced these things. So Because you, of course, are a human, you have the potential to find these or that profoundly valuable thing. Thus, because you have that potential, you are inherently valuable because you embody the potential for finding that valuable thing. Like, humans are super interesting because they kind of exist in the now and the future at the same time. Like, who you are now will affect who you are in the future. Thus, the difference between your current self and your future self is not obvious. They're sort of intertwined. And it isn't fully clear what parts of your being will affect who you'll be later in life. Maybe all parts will, maybe only some parts will. But generally, because you have that potential to find the fundamentally valuable thing in the future, maybe that valuable thing is actually already partially embodied within you. Like, you have the potential to find it. In order to find it, you need certain characteristics, and maybe you already have them in you and they're part of you. Thus, you're kind of like, part of the journey to finding that valuable thing is already inherently within you because you're human and humans have what it takes to find that thing. Now, whether you or not you find that valuable thing, the world essentially depends on that. Because if you find it, then you can lead others to find it. And we're not quite sure what this valuable thing is, but we know it is good and worth striving for. It will probably move us away from unnecessary suffering, which is relevant to all humans and good for all humans, and moving towards maybe fulfillment or meaning or enlightenment. What is that which is good for, let's say, all humans in life. Thus, the world depends on it, and because you have the ability to shift humanity towards that, you are inherently valuable. And the essence here is that you're inherently valuable because the fate of the world is embodied within you, and it lies in your hands to nurture that potential and try to bring it to manifest itself. Hence, your actions truly matter in the grand scheme of things. When you grasp this concept, you feel a deep sense of self-worth and peace. It gives you a kind of foundation to stand on. It grounds you in something that is larger and heavier than yourself. Hence, when something petty pokes you, you will not lose balance and fall because you have a deep sense of self-worth. You're grounded in something really heavy. Now, in order to just not just logically grasp this concept, but to feel it, and that you need to feel it in order to experience that self-worth. In order to feel it, you need to develop your spiritual non-physical side. That would entail reading and educating yourself on concepts like God, religion, and other spiritual teachings. It's quite simple in some sense, but you need to spend time thinking about the non-physical side of human life and let it shift your psyche. Because this concept of the potential in life, meaning in life, and your future self versus your current self and how they are actually intertwined is let's say it's quite an intellectual, conceptual model that you really need to grasp, and you need to sort of invite it into your perspectives and your mindset in life, and it has a lot to do with the non-physical side of life. Yes, and it's So you need to spend time thinking about the non-physical side of human life and let it shift your psyche, because it very likely will. You need a certain mindset to see the immense potential that lies within humans. You won't be able to see it alone by just... you won't be able to see it, let alone just feel it just like that. It needs to be nurtured and takes time. And in order to do that, I can highly recommend watching Jordan Peterson's biblical series for beginning to understand the concept of God, because he takes a very logical modern stance, a scientific stance on the phenomenon of God and of the Bible, which is really awesome. And otherwise, I also recommend reading Carl Jung's books, but read his books from the beginning to end, because it's sort of like a narrative. Don't start with Ion, start with something, his sort of earlier books. And I also can recommend Fyodor Dostoevsky's work. Yeah, so in conclusion, humans have an existential angst currently, especially today, because they are deprived of non-physical, I would say, spiritual teachings and the knowledge, just the basic knowledge that they are inherently valuable in life. And why? Like, you can tell people you're inherently valuable, but that's not going to cut it. You need to logically explain it and convince them. And I would say the Bible, or the concept of God, does that. It explains that you have this immense, potentially divine potential within you, and therefore you have the responsibility to nurture that and let it manifest itself. And because that power kind of lies in your hands, you are inherently valuable. It's something like that. But it's important to, once you can logically understand it, but you need to feel it. And that takes time, and you need to nurture that process by reading spiritual teachings and really thinking about it and dwelling and reflecting on it to really feel it. So please leave a comment below whether you agree with my perspective that like a spiritual foundation is the key to a feeling of self-worth in life, or whether you disagree with it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.